The youngest is 4 years old. There are different stages of development in a child.
Yeah, sure.
And what's the problem now with a 4-year-old to be in a psychiatry? To be seen, yes.
The child is with psychosis. He behaves very strange. With reports that he's seeing some dead people, dead uncles, not sleeping at night, insomnia, being very sort of fidgety. He's not controllable in the school environment, in the creche.
Preschool?
Preschool. He's so disruptive there sometimes that they withdraw him from there.
How much is the family involved then? Because you have to look into behind the walls what's going on here.
That's true.
Maybe he's traumatized from some violence, because you said he sees some dead people. South Africa has a high crime rate. Maybe he had seen this before, and he's working on that, and his way of working on it is to misbehave in any way. So what are you doing with him?
Well, the first thing is to take a very good history. That's primary. So a very good history. Both mother and father are involved in the history collection, as well as largely there's the mother, there's a grandmother involved. I'm thinking specifically about this child.
That's a very interesting now, because
father, who is actually a stepfather.
4 years.
Yes.
So what kind of treatment do you give to him, or what are you doing with him specifically now? Do you give him medication, or do you only talk to him, or do you try to support him so he's able to be in a preschool so he can communicate with others without problems? Or what kind of, children and adults are different.
Yes.
So you have to have a kind of plan for this child.
Yeah.
And you have to have, this child must trust you. It's also difficult,
Yeah, exactly.
So
there's quite a lot of involvement of there's a psychologist involved, and an occupational therapist involved, myself, in terms of the therapeutic team working with this child and the family. From my perspective, because of the difficulties in terms of sleep, difficulties in terms of very disruptive behavior, I'd had to put the child on Risperidone, very low dose.
Risperidone?
Risperidone.
Risperidone,
Very low dose risperidone. Just to calm the child a little bit and to for him to sleep better, and especially the preschool environment. So there was that aspect, and he is back in the preschool now, albeit a different one. I don't know if you have that in your environment, but in South Africa we've got some. There's inclusive education, and then there are some situations where there are some special schools. Special schools normally have got some social workers as well as a clinic on the premises, and that tends to be useful.
So what is normal behavior and what is misbehavior in your point of view?
What is normal?
What is normal behavior of a child with 4 years old, and what is misbehavior? So you can say this child has to be treated with something.
Okay, all right. I wouldn't call it misbehavior. It's a child who is perhaps disruptive. To the extent that they are not functional in a normal preschool environment. I won't call it misbehavior. It's, they are not. They can be, as it were, they can be accommodated, as it were, in a normal preschool environment because, of their disruptive behavior. Disruptive in the context of a preschool environment children.
So when they did not learn this well behavior at home, someone else has to take over, and that would be you in that case.
I wouldn't take over, I assist. We always
Assist.
We talk about a tripod, as it were, of management of a child where there are difficulties. So the school environment is one, the clinicians like myself is another, and the family, a triad of support for the child in the center. I would want some information from, for instance, from the school in terms of various instruments that sometimes we use in terms of hyperactivity, for instance, and disruptive behavior. One can use those such instruments, such as, for instance, SNAP4 or some other such instruments. You get information from the school. From the family, it's through interaction with the social worker as well as psychologist. You get information from them, and then from there you are able to see what intervention, from our perspective, you can put in. And you work through family as well as the school in terms of what you're doing, and then you see what progress you're making.
So does that child, I'm now focusing on that special child, does this child know that you are a psychiatrist, or does he only know you as Mr. Kirimi?
No, he knows me as doctor. I'm his doctor.
Does this child feel comfortable, or is he maybe kind of, a child also feels embarrassed or has, that fine feeling that something might not be okay with him, and he is now, I call it now, special treated? Does he feel bad about, or does he not even notice that something is going on with him, that you and others are working with him? Other children also know if one child is picked out, they may point the finger at him and say, you are a bad boy. Stigmatizing him with an etiquette.
I think he's quite aware.
Yeah.
He's aware that, I'm somebody who is supposed to assist him. I think he is quite aware of me and of my role. I think he's 5 now. He was 4 when we started, he's 5 now.
Is it allowed in South Africa to force a child to take medication and to hit him or to put him on a bed?
No, it's not. Corporal punishment is not allowed.
So I wonder if South Africa, they have a different temperature, different culture. They are more, children are very active. If in South Africa children are also have the experience with abuse.
There are quite a lot of reports, unfortunately.
This will damage their future,
of corporal punishment in schools, well reported. But it's policy of the Department of Education that no child must have corporal punishment. It is a policy of the Department of Education, and generally it's something that's frowned upon. And certainly from a mental health point of view, it should never be done. I don't know how to I can describe it, but it's never. No child is supposed to get corporal punishment.
So you
Not at all.
so you focus more on the positive development of a child and not tell him all the time, you do this wrong, you did this wrong, you misbehave here, you misbehave here. So you try more to get the positive out of this child, so he will have a positive, hopefully a positive development, because a child with 4 years, it's not the end of the life, it's just the beginning.
Yeah, it's a developmental stage.
Yeah.
And I agree completely that that's why I said it's not misbehavior as such, because in terms of developmental stages, a child who is 4, Erickson referred to that stage as an initiative stage, as it were. I mean, first stage is trust, mistrust. The next stage is autonomy versus shame. The next stage that we're talking about now is initiative. And initiative means a child is exploring and experimenting and so forth, etc. So it's not misbehavior. One needs to, when you work with family, when you work with teachers, preschool teachers for that matter, you need to have some clarity around that this is not just a normal developmental issue of a child who is trying to negotiate the stage of initiative and experimentation and so forth, etc.
Have you ever thought about that the problem might be that certain class or that certain teacher?
Evaluation involves all those processes. Before is the diagnostic process.
Yeah.
By the time the child reaches the child psychiatrist, we have gone through quite a process of very detailed history taking.
Yeah.
I normally work with, that's the normal environment. I work with registrars, psychiatrists in training, as well as medical officers, and we do very detailed screening. By the time we are evaluating a child as an issue, then there are real issues as far as the child is concerned, not just developmental issues. Because in training, whether it's psychology or psychiatry, the most basic of things, even social work, the most basic of things is understanding what are the milestones in terms of development, what is expected of a normal child, when are things abnormal that require certain interventions.
So you are the only child psychiatrist in your area. In Kimberley, is that you come from? So do you know how other parts of South Africa are supported with psychiatrists? How many child psychiatrists are there at all, or is this a new field?
I wouldn't say it's a new field. It isn't. Child psychiatry is not a new field. It's a very old field. I know there are about 30 or so of us serving a population of 50 million. Not 50 million. Okay, 50 million is our population, but we are a young population, so you'll find that of the 50 million, children would constitute around 40%, 40 to 45% of that population. So that's a huge population. So you're talking about 20 million thereabouts, 30 child psychiatrists. Not a good proportion, and a lot of us are in the metropoles, in the big places like in Cape Town. That's where the majority of child psychiatrists would be.
Are there studies going on, or do you know anything about other countries like Germany or the States, or there was someone from India here as well, from Mexico. Do you work together, or is it just you are focusing on Kimberley, on South Africa, and that's it? You get the infos now from here, what's going on the psychiatry market, medication, medical instruments, etc. So
working together.
Studies going on.
I don't do much of research.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of research. I do a lot of clinical work. I'm largely a clinician. In other words, I see patients.
Yeah.
And in terms of my contact with people outside, it's when I attend conferences like this one.
Yeah.
Then I've got contact with the outside world.
Yeah.
Every now and then we've got local meetings within South Africa, like our society psychiatrists. We have local congresses or conferences. We share information, but also like workshops. In the Department of Health, we do have workshops on various issues.
Yeah.
For instance, children in conflict with the law. An act is passed, and how are these children being processed through the justice system? For instance, we have a workshop where we discuss these issues. People working in the forensic environment of child and adolescent psychiatry. Then we can have meetings and share information. But not to the extent that you describe. I don't do big research. I don't. Well, I am associate lecturer with the university, local university, but I don't do much of research. No, I don't.
Do you pay for this conference on your own, or do you get a fund, a support from the government, from the Department of Health, or do you have to pay it from your own pockets?
It's paid for by the clinic that I work for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And go to Fishhook.